What's good, boxing fans? Welcome back to Hall of Boxing. So today, we just listened to an interview that former welterweight champion Keith one-time Thurman did, where he was asked about Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis and whether he would fight either one of the two here in the near future. And he sounded off. He said that he's not going to fight either one of those guys. Basically, he gave the same spiel back. I don't know if you guys remember when Earl the Truth Spence Jr. was calling out Keith one-time Thurman back when Earl Spence was an up-and-comer, and Keith one-time, was a little higher up than Earl Spence was. He was looking at Floyd Mayweather, but Mayweather was paying him no mind. He wasn't going to get that fight with Floyd Mayweather, Keith Thurman that being. But Earl Spence Jr., was heavy on his ass and coming up. And, in my opinion, he was deserving of a fight because I already knew Earl Spence Jr. was going to be the future of the division. This is similar to what I know about Jaron Ennis, but we're going to get, to that a little later. But anyway, so this, basically sounds like the same spiel he gave when Earl Spence was calling him out. Now, this is both for Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz. He said that he's not fighting either one of those guys. Now, in this case, even though I do compare it to the Earl Spence, when Earl Spence was calling him out, I do think he has more of a point here. These guys are a little younger. Jaron Ennis being 23 years of age, he just turned 24 years of age last week. So him being 24 years of age, he's only had his best fights. He just had some step-up fights against Sergey Leibniz, and he also fight Chris Van Heerden, if you want to call it. It is a step-up fight for him, but it's not like the upper echelon of competition. So he's just now stepping up, and Virgil Ortiz of Dallas, Texas, being only 17-0, and he's 23 years old as well. They're both very close in age, but he hadn't faced any real stiff competition either. His biggest opponent being Maurice Hooker. So, I can understand and, how some would argue that those two would probably need to fight each other before stepping up to a Keith Thurman. But, I can also see the other side of the spectrum where, Keith Thurman is coming off of a loss against the Pac-Man, which happened in July of 2019. He hasn't fought since then. He's been on a layoff. And prior to him fighting Pac-Man, he had fought Josecito Lopez, but he was on like a almost 2-year layoff prior to that fight as well, after coming off his win against Danny Garcia. So I don't know. Some could argue that he has, taken steps back, being out of the ring so long and coming off of a loss, losing his belt, not, fighting and redeeming himself, not even if it's against Pac-Man, but just redeeming himself to the sport of boxing, just taking a comeback fight and showing that he still got it. It was a good fight. It's not like he just went out and got his ass beat against Pac-Man. He got knocked down in the first and second round or the beginning of the fight, and he came back and fought hard. It was a warrior fight. But, he says that he's not fighting either one of those fighters. Now, I do have the audio clip to the interview right here. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and listen to some pieces of it and hear for yourself, what he had to say, and then we'll come back here and talk about it here in a bit.
Keith one-time Thurman. Thurman, I wanted to get your thoughts on the young gun, man. Virgil Ortiz calling you out after his fight. First thing he says is, "I want Thurman." It's not the first time he says it. And I know you had a little slogan here in this very gym called the Keith one-time Thurman test. Do you want to put Virgil through it, or do you feel like I'm on another level, he's still making his bones, let him make them before he could bark up this tree?
I got my eyes geared towards the biggest fights at 147. I would say that he probably has to climb the ladder a little bit more, but only because he's gunning after me, I'm not gunning after him. I got my guns pointed down barrels at different targets, mainly world champions, because I want to get back on that world champion status. I've seen a little bit on the boy. I can't speak much because I haven't seen much, so I'm not going to go deep into anything there, but he definitely shows potential.
Another young gun, and one that the world seems more invested in, if not the networks, is Jaron Ennis. Because of him, clearing up his lawsuit and now working with Showtime, it seems like that could be a possible opponent for Keith one-time Thurman. Is he too young and not on your radar? or would you look to do like a Mayweather, right? Because they're calling this guy the next one, right? So would you take him on early like Canelo, like Mayweather did Canelo?
Like I said, man, anything that gets presented to me, I'll look at it. These young bucks have not been presented yet. I really think they're still climbing the ladder. I think they know that they belong with the best fighters in the world. They're starting to build their names. They're starting to get their recognition. The young man that you just mentioned, he might be on Showtime. Never heard of him. You know.
So you never watched this fight with Sergey Lipinets, common opponent with Mikey? He destroyed them.
No.
Oh.
No. Lipinets never really impressed me though. And I think a lot of people started figuring his style out. I think it was very one-dimensional. So if somebody handled him good, it's about time. I think Lipinets got through too many people anyways, so it is what it is.
So you never even seen Jaron Boots Ennis fight?
No, sir.
All right, so as you heard, not only does Keith one-time Thurman say that he's not going to be fighting Jaron Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz anytime soon, you know, because they need to, you know, establish their presence, you know, before they can step up to him or whatever he says. They need to prove a little bit more that they do belong. You know, they're just they know that they do belong, but they need to prove it, is what he said. But anyway, not only does he say he's not fighting either one of them, but he also claims that he's never heard of Jaron Ennis. He doesn't know who Jaron Ennis is. He also tried to discredit Jaron Ennis by discrediting Sergey Lipinets, basically saying that Sergey Lipinets basically has just been making it. He's never been that good anyway. It's finally, you know, it's been time for somebody to expose him or whatnot. You know, basically trying to discredit Jaron Ennis is what it sounds like to me. He's trying to discredit Jaron Ennis by discrediting him, trying to make it like, oh, why do I need to even be looking at this guy? Because he hadn't fought nobody. Sergey Lipinets ain't nobody for me to be impressed with, so I'm not impressed with the guy. He's even lower than Virgil Ortiz, because he did mention that, you know, Virgil Ortiz is somebody he's going to have to look at. He's seen Virgil Ortiz, he can pop or whatever. He did give him credit for that, but he's claiming he's never heard of Jaron Ennis. Now, you know, I don't know, you know, I don't want to, you know, just say this man's lying because I don't know the guy, but, you know, this just sounds funny to me. Jaron Ennis is most definitely an up-and-coming contender in his sport. He's one of the top 7 guys. I'd have to say top 7, 8 guys. I'd have to say maybe the top 6, 7 guys, really, because I know the boy's going to be the future of the division. But right now, you know, as it stands, we still have Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford, Danny Garcia's in there, Sean Porter, not in this order, so don't quote me on that. But Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Jordanius Ugas, Keith Thurman. How many is that? Probably 6. Then Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz are right there. So 6, 7, 8, whatever. You know, the top 8. So he's having a look at these guys because these guys are on his trail. If he can't land a big fight with, you know, Pacquiao's in the division, you know, but he's legendary. But if the man cannot land a fight with Errol Spence, which he's not going to because he's fighting Pacquiao, he's not getting Pacquiao because Pacquiao's fighting Errol Spence. He's not getting Keith Thurman because Bob Arum is already saying that Keith Thurman's looking to fight. You know, he wants Josh Taylor, but Josh Taylor has to fight the guy who he signed to fight the night when him and Ramirez fought. They both put in their contract that winner of that fight would give another guy an opportunity. So he's off the table. So he's looking at Jose Ramirez, which Josh Taylor beat. He's looking at Regis Prograis, whatever. He's looking at Jose Zapata or something like that. He's looking for these 3 guys, which are all 140-pounders, and they're all, I believe, on Top Rank's card. They're all on Top Rank's payroll. So he's not getting the fight with him. Now he could go back and fight either Danny Garcia or Sean Porter, but I don't know. You know, I mean that wouldn't be bad. But actually, Ugas would be another guy. Now, Ugas would be the easiest fight for Keith Thurman to make, because they're saying that Ugas is actually going to get to fight since he was given the WBA belt because Pacquiao was out for too long and he wasn't going to be fighting a top 10 guy. he was given the belt, but now they're saying that since they took the belt from Pacquiao in recession, that since he was a champion in recession, that he can possibly be reinstated for the Errol Spence fight. So anyway, with all of that controversy or whatever, they promised Ugas that he would get to fight on that undercard, the Spence and Pacquiao undercard, and he doesn't have an opponent yet. He stated that he wouldn't mind fighting. He wants a top guy. He wouldn't mind fighting Mikey Garcia. He said Keith Thurman, and he also wouldn't mind rematching with Sean Porter, which we all know he lost to in a close fight, a controversial fight. Some thought Ugas might have won that. He's saying he'd fight any of those guys. Now, there's question going on right now. We're not sure if Pacquiao is going to be reinstated the championship or not. They said he would, but he hasn't been yet, so I don't know. But Keith Thurman had mentioned that he would fight Ugas if he had a championship. So Ugas does have a matchup on one of the biggest card of the year, or the biggest card in a long time, on the Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao card. Ugas does have a spot on that, so that would be huge, but he might not have a belt. So will Keith Thurman still want to fight Ugas if he doesn't have the belt? In my opinion, that would be a very good matchup still, because it's going to bring a lot of exposure, and it's going to be a welterweight card. It's going to be a welterweight main event. It's going to be a welterweight co-main event. So the person who wins that fight, if it's that big of a fight, is going to put themselves in a position to possibly be able to get the championship shot later in the near future, if you will. But if he doesn't get the Ugas fight, and he doesn't fight, Sean Porter would really be the only one. Danny Garcia's kind of waned since they fought. He's speaking of moving up to 154 or something. So Sean Porter would be the more realistic rematch if he was going to face one of those guys. That would be a good fight too. But outside of Sean Porter and Ugas, if you don't fight Ugas because of the belt, then the next two guys up would be either Victor Ortiz or Jaron Ennis. I think Jaron Ennis or Victor Ortiz. I like Victor Ortiz, but I think Jaron Ennis is a better fighter. He's extremely explosive. He's going to give problems to anybody. Victor Ortiz is as well. Victor Ortiz is a very good fighter. He's a bit more flat-footed though. Got some pop, but so does Jaron Ennis. I think if they do match up, I'd go with Jaron Ennis. Also, if Keith Thurman and Jaron Ennis match up, no disrespect to Keith Thurman at all. He's a warrior, but with the ring rust, he's laid off. 2 long layoffs, coming off a loss, getting a little older, and Jaron Ennis just he's a very explosive fighter. He reminds me of like a Roy Jones Jr. type in the welterweight, a lighter Roy Jones Jr. type fighter. Just, explosive and flashy. And, I don't know, he's just accurate. I give him the edge in that fight. It'll be a very close fight, not taking anything from Keith Thurman. That'll be a huge test for Jaron Ennis, a huge step-up fight. And, that would, really catapult him onto the next level if he can go beat a guy like Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman is a dog. He is a top 5 guy in the welterweight division at the moment. Either way it goes, even if, because, Keith Thurman does have a valid point at being that, Jaron Ennis hadn't really fought anybody. He needs a few more. There are a few guys up there that are pretty close to the top 8 welterweights. It's this guy, I can't remember where he's from. Yeah, last name's hard to pronounce. I'll write his name up in the description, but it's this guy that either him or Virgil Ortiz could go fight. But again, I think they're better than he is. So anyway, Keith Thurman is going to have to see either Virgil Ortiz or Jaron Ennis here in the near future, here in the next year or two. After this year, he's not going to be able to, say that stuff much more. There aren't going to be many guys in the division, especially if Errol Spence is already talking about moving up to 154 if he doesn't get the Terrence Crawford fight. And Bob Arum is saying that he does not want to. He's saying that you can move on, and what his exact words, we can go ahead and move on from that fight. He claims that Errol Spence already knows that he can't beat Terrence Crawford, so he's not even going to try to make the fight happen anymore. Errol Spence just wants his fair share of the money, and if he goes and captures the WBA belt, holds the WBC and the IBF, and Terrence Crawford only has the WBO, then why not just, split the money up by belts? At that point, it'll be 75-25. Not being biased, but Errol Spence has fought more of the bigger names at the welterweight division. Matter of fact, I can't think of any names bigger than Errol Spence, even the Danny Garcia that Terrence Crawford has fought, whether it be at 140 or 147. So, people like to argue that it should be a 50-50 fight, but Bob Arum doesn't promote Crawford like that. That's why he's saying he's losing money. Errol Spence isn't losing money where he's at. He's making a lot of money. If he's gonna do more of the, pull more of the weight, have more of the fans, do more of the dirty work, go fight the bigger dogs, then he should get the bigger cut. And that's just, God honest. If you guys were out there and you were doing more work than somebody else and, pulling their weight and doing all this, especially if you were an entrepreneur and you wasn't working like for a true boss, and you called your own shots in a sense, then you would want a majority of the money as well. But that's all I have for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video and you like this boxing content and you want more of it, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notification button so you can get, the latest updates of anything that I drop. There will be a whole lot more coming soon. Y'all just fuck with me.